When emotions are heightened, the natural impulse is to act. When someone you care for suddenly withdraws, becomes cold, or begins playing games with your heart, every fiber of your being wants to chase after them, to demand answers, to make them see your worth. That instinct, though very human, often backfires when dealing with an avoidant personality. The truth is, avoidant men thrive in the space where you react to their withdrawal. They rely on the emotional power they gain when you rush to close the gap they have created. But here lies the paradox, Day. The most powerful response is often no response at all. Mastering the pause is about understanding that silence is not weakness, it is strategy. The pause creates discomfort in the person who expects your pursuit. When he pulls back and you do not run after him, you disrupt his expectation. Instead of being the one in control, he begins to feel the weight of the distance he created. It unsettles him because the power dynamic has shifted. Instead of you scrambling to maintain closeness, he is left to confront the silence he engineered, and in that silence, he is forced to question whether he miscalculated your need for him. This does not mean you are playing games, it means you are refusing to participate in his. The pause also gives you the gift of perspective. When you step back instead of charging forward, you create space for clarity. Emotions can cloud judgment, but distance helps you see patterns for what they are. You notice whether his withdrawal is a momentary lapse or a repeated cycle. You realize whether you are chasing him out of love or out of fear of abandonment. This pause is not just about unsettling him. It is about centering yourself. It allows you to observe, to breathe, and to remind yourself that your worth is not measured by how quickly you can pull someone back into your orbit. There is a deep psychological strength in resisting the urge to fill silence. People often underestimate the power of not reacting. In relationships, we are conditioned to believe that constant effort equals love, but when that effort is met with avoidance, it transforms into self-sacrifice. By pausing, you send a message, not aggressively, not with hostility, but with quiet certainty, that your love is not desperate, that your heart is not a playground for games. That calm defiance is more impactful than any argument could ever be. It is important to remember that mastering the pause does not mean sulking or pretending you are unaffected. It is not about punishment, nor is it about passive aggression. It is about choosing stillness over reaction. You continue living your life, you pour into yourself, and you remain present in your world without making him the center of it. That composure communicates far more than words ever could. It demonstrates that your happiness is not tethered to his mood swings, and that realization alone can shift the balance of power in the relationship. What makes the pause so effective is that it forces authenticity. An avoidant man used to you smoothing over every rupture is suddenly confronted with a mirror. He has to decide whether his distance is worth the risk of losing you. Many times, the very act of you doing nothing becomes the catalyst for him to step forward. And if he doesn't, then the pause reveals the truth that he was never willing to meet you where you stand. Either way you win, because clarity is a form of freedom. To master the pause is to master yourself. It requires discipline, restraint, and the courage to let silence speak louder than desperation. It is not easy because it demands patience in the face of uncertainty. Yet it is in that pause that you reclaim your power. Instead of being at the mercy of his avoidance, you stand rooted in your own dignity. In the end, the pause is not just about unsettling him, it is about liberating you. When you learn that you can survive his silence without breaking, you realize that his games no longer hold you hostage. The pause becomes not just a strategy, but a declaration your heart will no longer chase what does not choose to stay. When it comes to dealing with a man who withdraws, gives mixed signals, or thrives on keeping you in a guessing game, one of the most powerful shifts you can make is to mirror his energy. At first, this may sound like playing into his tactics, but it is not about manipulation. It is about reclaiming balance in the dynamic and teaching your heart to stop giving away more than it receives. The reason so many people fall into pain with avoidant men is because the moment he retreats, they rush forward. The moment he grows cold, they turn up the warmth. It becomes a cycle where he sets the pace and you follow, often against your better judgment. Mirroring his energy breaks this cycle because it stops rewarding his inconsistency with your overinvestment. Think of it this way, relationships are built on reciprocity, not one-sided sacrifice. When you keep pouring in more while he gives less, you teach him that your love, your attention, and your presence come without effort on his part. That does not inspire him to change, it trains him to stay the same. Mirroring his energy interrupts that conditioning. If he sends a half-hearted message, instead of writing a paragraph back, you respond with equal brevity. If he avoids making plans, you do not rearrange your life to accommodate him. If he disappears for days, you do not keep yourself on pause, waiting eagerly for his return. By matching his level of effort, you subtly communicate that his behavior does not control you and that intimacy with you is earned, not assumed. This approach is not about withholding affection or pretending to be someone you are not. It is about emotional boundaries. When you mirror his energy, you are saying, I will meet you where you are, but I will not carry us both. This stops you from bleeding energy into someone who is not investing equally. It forces him to recognize that every action has a response and every withdrawal creates a gap that you will not automatically fill. That gap becomes a mirror for him, a reflection of his own choices, and often it is in that reflection that avoidant men feel the discomfort of their own distance. The beauty of this practice is that it recenters your power. Instead of anxiously adjusting to his rhythm, you hold your ground. You show that you are not dependent on his validation to feel secure. The psychological effect is powerful because avoidant men thrive when they sense you will chase them no matter what. By mirroring, you change the rules of the game. You are not cold, but you are not desperate. You are not rude, but you are not endlessly available. It is a subtle but undeniable shift that protects your dignity and resets the balance. Over time, this balance reveals the truth. If he is genuinely interested but caught in patterns of avoidance, mirroring can draw him closer because he realizes that in order to have you, he must step up. If he is only playing games and never intended to offer more, mirroring exposes that reality sooner rather than later. Either way, you win because you stop wasting energy in the dark. Mirroring his energy acts as both a filter and a shield, a filter that separates genuine interest from manipulation, and a shield that guards your heart from overextension. At its core, mirroring is not about him at all, it is about you. It is a declaration that your energy is valuable and you will not spend it recklessly. It is about recognizing that love cannot be begged, chased, or forced. When you stop doing the emotional heavy lifting for both of you, you allow his true character to surface. That clarity is what sets you free. So when faced with an avoidant man who plays games with your heart, remember this truth: you do not win by chasing harder, you win by matching his steps, holding your ground, and refusing to dance to a rhythm that does not honor your worth. Creating scarcity in a relationship with an avoidant man is not about manipulation. It is about restoring balance where imbalance has taken root. When someone constantly pulls away, ignores your needs, or feeds you mixed signals, what they are unconsciously communicating is that your presence is too easy to access, too certain, too guaranteed. Human psychology places a higher value on things that feel rare, limited, and not endlessly available. When you learn to create scarcity in your interactions, you remind him, without words, that your time, attention, and emotional energy are not infinite resources for him to drain at will. Instead of trying to force him to pay attention, you invite him to see you as someone whose presence must be earned. The power of scarcity begins with your time. Many people, especially when invested emotionally, make the mistake of rearranging their schedule the moment this man reappears. He sends a late night text and you answer. He calls at the last minute and you say yes, even though it means cancelling your own plans. These decisions, though innocent in the moment, teach him that you will always be available regardless of how he treats you. To create scarcity, you must resist this pattern. The next time he resurfaces after days of silence, you do not abandon your world to accommodate his. Instead, you continue living your life as though his presence is optional, not central. When you decline, reschedule, or simply take time before responding, you shift the psychological frame. You are no longer a guarantee. Scarcity is also about emotional availability. Avoidant men often test how far they can stretch your patience. They breadcrumb affection, giving you just enough to keep you tethered while withholding true intimacy. If you respond to every morsel with overwhelming gratitude, you reinforce the cycle. But when you step back and limit the amount of emotional labor you offer, He begins to feel the absence. For example, if he avoids deep conversation instead of filling the silence with vulnerability and over-explanations, you allow the silence to exist. If he offers minimal effort, you do not rush in to compensate with maximum effort. This absence creates space where he must either step forward or risk losing you. In that space, he encounters a discomfort he is not used to, realizing that your emotional warmth cannot be taken for granted. Creating scarcity also means cultivating a life so rich and fulfilling that his games become background noise rather than center stage. When you pour energy into your career, your friendships, your passions, and your personal growth, you naturally become less available to play by his inconsistent rules. The less you orbit around him, the more he notices the shift. He may try to pull you back with sudden bursts of attention, but by then you have learned the secret. Scarcity is not about pretending to be busy, it is about actually living fully. The man who thought you would always wait begins to feel an unfamiliar sensation. He is now the one waiting for you. It is important to understand that scarcity is not cruelty. It is not about punishing him or playing hard to get. It is about valuing yourself enough to withhold the best of you from someone who does not show up consistently. This boundary protects you from emotional exhaustion while also recalibrating the dynamic. By creating scarcity, you remind him that your love is a gift, not a guarantee, and that no matter how deeply you care, you will never sacrifice your dignity to keep someone who cannot meet you halfway. In the end, the psychology of scarcity reveals a simple truth: people value what they could lose. An avoidant man may not admit it, but when he realizes that your attention is not infinite, when he feels the weight of your absence, he will be forced to confront his own choices. Whether he steps forward or retreats further is not yours to control, but what matters is that you have reclaimed your power. You no longer live at the mercy of his games. You live on your own terms, and that is the kind of scarcity that transforms not just how he sees you, but how you see yourself. When someone is caught in the cycle of trying to win over an avoidant man, predictability often becomes their downfall. The avoidant thrives on the routine of knowing exactly how you will respond when he distances himself, sends mixed signals, or keeps you waiting. He knows that if he pulls back, you will lean in. If he ignores your messages, you will write longer ones. If he withdraws, you will chase harder. This script feeds his sense of control and allows him to dictate the pace of the relationship without ever having to truly commit. To outsmart him, the most powerful step you can take is to break predictability. Breaking predictability begins with recognizing the patterns you have fallen into. Maybe you always answer the phone on the first ring, maybe you always forgive too quickly, or maybe you always wait around for him to set the plans. These routines make you easy to read, and when someone knows your every move, they stop respecting your presence. The moment you disrupt these habits, you create an entirely new dynamic. Instead of waiting by the phone, you let calls go unanswered sometimes. Instead of being the one who adjusts their life around his availability, you start building a rhythm of your own. Suddenly, the game he has been playing no longer works because you are not playing by the rules he wrote. When you stop being predictable, you also stop feeding the illusion that he can manage your emotions. Avoidant men often test how much they can pull away without losing you. When you react the same way every time, by chasing or over-explaining, you confirm that he still has you where he wants you. But when you surprise him by stepping back, cutting conversations short, or even smiling calmly as you disengage, you interrupt his sense of control. He begins to question whether you are as dependent as he once thought, and that uncertainty forces him to examine his behavior. It is important to understand that breaking predictability is not about playing games in return. It is not about pretending to be busy when you are not, or faking indifference just to get his attention. It is about reclaiming your independence and showing through your actions that your world does not revolve around someone else's whims. Real independence is magnetic because it conveys that you are whole on your own. The avoidant expects you to orbit his mood swings, but when you step out of orbit and move freely, he realizes that the balance of power has shifted. Sometimes this disruption means choosing yourself in small but powerful ways. You might decide to go out with friends instead of waiting for him to confirm plans. You might end a phone call first instead of lingering until he is done. You might even leave a message unanswered when you sense it was sent just to test your availability. Each of these choices sends a quiet but firm message: you are no longer operating by his script. Over time, these small breaks from predictability accumulate into a new reality where he cannot control the rhythm of the relationship. The deeper truth is that predictability creates comfort not just for him, but also for you. It feels safer to keep responding the way you always have, even if it leaves you unsatisfied. Breaking predictability requires courage because it means stepping into the unknown and risking the possibility that he may pull away entirely. But that risk is also the source of your strength. By breaking the cycle, you stop clinging to what little he offers and start demanding more from life and from love. Whether he rises to meet you or fades away, you win because you have proven to yourself that you no longer need to accept the crumbs of connection he throws your way. In the end, breaking predictability is about teaching both him and yourself a crucial lesson. Love is not built on routines of avoidance and pursuit, but on mutual respect, presence, and emotional availability. When you disrupt the game, you stop being the predictable player and start being the one who sets the terms of your own emotional life. That shift is not only what unsettles an avoidant man, it is what frees you. Clarity is one of the most powerful tools you can bring into any relationship, especially when dealing with someone who thrives on confusion and mixed signals. People who are avoidant often rely on keeping you uncertain, because that uncertainty keeps you questioning yourself and chasing after their validation. When you step into clarity, you immediately strip away that hidden advantage. Clarity means knowing what you want, being able to express it without apology, and refusing to be trapped in a cycle of guessing games. It is not about being aggressive or issuing ultimatums. It is about standing in your truth so firmly that no one can twist it or undermine it. When someone is playing games with your heart, their power comes from your willingness to interpret the grey areas. They give half promises, vague answers, or future possibilities without committing to the present. In that fog, you start filling in the blanks with your own hopes, convincing yourself that maybe they mean more than they're showing. But clarity demands that you stop filling in the blanks. Instead, you ask questions, you listen to actions over words, and you choose not to excuse behavior that leaves you in doubt. By doing so, you pull the curtain back on the illusion and force reality to show itself. One of the simplest but strongest ways to use clarity as a weapon is to articulate your boundaries without fear. For example, saying calmly, "I'm looking for consistency and commitment. If you can't give that, I won't invest further," is not an attack. It's a declaration of values. The power lies not in trying to convince him, but in making your position undeniable. That clarity leaves no room for him to pretend he doesn't understand, and no space for you to wonder if you're asking for too much. The game breaks when you refuse to play it. Clarity also protects your emotional energy. Ambiguity drains you because it keeps you in a constant state of analysis. You replay conversations, dissect text messages, and wonder what silence means. This mental exhaustion benefits the avoidant man because it keeps you hooked trying to decode him. When you adopt clarity, you no longer engage in endless analysis. You take what is presented at face value and you respond based on your needs. If he is inconsistent, that's not a puzzle to solve, it's an answer in itself. If he disappears when things get close, that is not a mystery, it is clarity showing you his limits. Using clarity in this way does not guarantee that he will change. In fact, often it has the opposite effect. It makes him uncomfortable because clarity strips away the safety net of avoidance. He may push back, withdraw even more, or accuse you of being too much. But that is where the real strength lies. Clarity is not meant to fix him, it is meant to protect you. When you stand in it, you can recognize when someone's behavior is incompatible with your values, and you can walk away with confidence instead of doubt. The ultimate gift of clarity is that it shifts your perspective from reaction to choice. Instead of reacting to his behavior and adjusting yourself to keep him around, you choose based on what aligns with your peace. You choose not to negotiate with inconsistency. You choose not to invest in confusion. You choose to see avoidance for what it is rather than what you wish it could be. In doing so, you outsmart the game entirely. You remove yourself from the maze of uncertainty and place yourself on solid ground where your worth is not questioned and your heart is not toyed with. When you are caught in the web of an avoidant man's games, it is easy to believe that the solution lies in decoding his silences, interpreting his moods, or bending yourself into shapes that might finally make him stay. But the greatest trick to outsmarting the cycle is not about him at all. It is about you. Choosing yourself first is the antidote to emotional tug of war. It is the act of reclaiming your power when someone else is trying to script your worth. Many people think self-respect comes after the relationship, once the storm has passed. In truth, it begins in the middle of the chaos, when you decide that your peace and dignity are worth more than waiting for crumbs of affection. When you choose yourself, you stop viewing love as something you must earn from someone who withholds it. Instead, you recognize love as something you already deserve simply by being whole. An avoidant man thrives on the idea that you will chase, that you will fill the silences he creates with your own explanations. But when you choose yourself, you refuse to be the one who does all the emotional heavy lifting. You no longer scramble to fix what he breaks. You stop trying to carry both your needs and his fears at the same time. That shift sends a message louder than any confrontation ever could. My heart is valuable, and I will not let you discount it. There is strength in detachment that does not come from bitterness, but from clarity. Choosing yourself does not mean shutting off your feelings or pretending you do not care. It means allowing your feelings to exist without handing them over to someone who misses them. You acknowledge the hurt, but you also acknowledge your own worth. It is the difference between saying, "I hope he sees what I bring," and saying, "I see what I bring, and that is enough to walk away if I must." This perspective changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, the avoidant man is no longer holding the pen to your story. You are. When you begin to value yourself above the games lose their power. His distance no longer dictates your self-esteem. His silence no longer shapes your nights. You become more invested in your own joy than in waiting for his validation. And ironically, that is the moment when the avoidant man feels the ground shift beneath him. His control was never about affection, it was about keeping you uncertain. But certainty within yourself dismantles that strategy. When you choose yourself, you show him, and more importantly, you show you that you are not afraid of being alone because you are already whole. Choosing yourself also means setting boundaries that reflect your value. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors you decide who gets to walk through. When an avoidant man ignores your needs, a clear boundary communicates that love cannot thrive in neglect, and if he cannot meet you with respect and consistency, you have the strength to close that door with dignity. In doing so, you protect not only your heart, but also your future, because the love you accept shapes the love you believe you deserve. Above all, choosing yourself is not a one-time decision, it is a daily practice. It is waking up and reminding yourself that your happiness cannot hinge on someone who withholds commitment. It is learning to pour into your own life through friendships, passions, and growth so that your worth feels unshakable. When you place yourself at the center of your own story, the avoidant man becomes just a character passing through, not the author of your narrative. To choose yourself first is to declare that your heart is not a playground for someone else's fears. It is a sacred space, and only those who respect it get to enter. When you make that choice consistently, you stop asking how to win him, and you start realizing you never had to play the game at all.